All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Clerk will note those in attendance.
All will be noted.
Thank you. Would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is approval of the minutes of the October 26, 2021 meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I'll move approval, Madam Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to approval of the agenda, I believe, Ms. Heinecker, you have something you want to add under new business?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council. So on your dais was placed an item 9F. We would like to reschedule the public hearing for the issuance of our bonds to the December 14th meeting, and it has to do with publication deadlines. So please, under 9F, if we could add that.
Perfect. We will do that. With that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to visitors and presentations. At this time, Samantha Crosby and Tracy Shimmick are here to talk about climate-smart municipalities. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. The city is fortunate to be one of 6 Minnesota cities participating in the Climate Smart Municipalities program. The program is an international exchange program where each city is assigned to a corresponding city in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. The city of White Bear Lake has been participating in this program, which is made possible through a grant from the federal German government and a partnership with the University of Minnesota since 2018. The program has provided the opportunity to make connections not only with our partner city Ludenscheid, but with other participating municipalities, various regional and state agencies, and even private companies. It has been a privilege to be part of such a strong delegation and to forge regional and business connections across the state and overseas. The goal of the program is the exchange of ideas and to partner on local actions in support of the global energy transition. This presentation is a brief overview of our 2021 trip. We are paying the costs of global climate change, and we will continue to pay them, but those costs will only continue to grow exponentially if we don't act now. This was the informal theme of this year's trip. It was just an idea that kept reoccurring in the conversations we were having throughout the week. The idea, not the cost of action, but the greater cost of inaction. We will all bear the cost of mitigating and recovering from natural disasters, and we bear it in ways such as insurance rate hikes and ever-rising energy costs. But viewed through a more optimistic lens, analysis has shown that clean energy brings high-paying jobs to Minnesota communities. Many major companies are already pivoting towards decarbonization, such as the Ford Motor Company making an $11 billion investment in electrical vehicle production and the refurbishment and recycling methods for EV batteries in an effort to put itself at the center of the electric vehicle revolution. A decarbonized economy is recognized as the path forward by a sizable number of both consumers and industry leaders. The wave of transition is coming, and we can either take advantage of the economic opportunity it provides, or we can get tossed around by that wave. The CSM program highlights ways in which we can support local solutions to mitigate greenhouse gases while also spurring economic growth at the same time.
While we were there, we were definitely drinking from a fire hose. It was a constant onslaught of information at all levels. Some of it was above my head, if I'm being honest, but I did learn a lot, and I think Sam learned a lot as well. We left with more takeaways than can be contained in probably a council meeting, let alone one presentation in a council meeting. But we're here to share some of those with you tonight. I think the main takeaways that we had is leaving with a sense of urgency, but also leaving with the hope that Sam referenced. The urgency is that cost of inaction. And And we pay that cost. We're paying it both currently and we're going to pay it in the future. We pay those both on an economic level and on a social level. So on an economic level, the cost of recovering from disasters and the frequency of natural disasters and extreme weather events that are occurring, and just the social costs of who's impacted. It's typically those who are on the lower end of economic means, and it's harder for them to recover. We also left with hope, because working in parallel with communities, not just in Minnesota, but across the globe, we're able to make change. It's not just one small community making this effort. Also, advances in technology make the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions much easier to accomplish. And there's, as Sam referenced, a lot of potential economic opportunities, not just for our own city, but that could be realized in our region. And that us as a city, as White Bear Lake, can play a leading role in advancing this change. And so I think it's easy for us to look at these natural disasters as they occur, as we look at hurricanes and things like that, and think that we're not being impacted at a local level. But really, we're seeing the impacts of those change. The health impacts, I don't know if you guys noticed it this summer, but with the wildfires and the quality of air that we were experiencing down here, I run often. I had to cut back on my running. Not that that's the end of the world, but it is an impact that we're feeling. Water quality, I'm not able to bring my dogs to the dog park in late summer anymore because of the algae blooms and just concern over their health. One dog. We saw the drought and lawn watering issues that bring much consternation among neighbors, and even just recreation when we have the fluctuating lake levels, the impacts on fishing and swimming. Ramsey County Beach being closed for nearly a decade is an example of that. Also, we're seeing that in infrastructure costs. Our stormwater systems, and I am not a stormwater expert, but our stormwater systems were designed to handle 2-inch rainfall occurrences, which at the time were 100-year rainfall events. We're now experiencing 2-inch rainfall occurrences 10 times a year approximately. Also impacts to our urban forest and the cost of replacing trees. There's also economic impacts that we feel both at an organizational level, at a business level, and a personal level. The increased costs for heating and cooling as we experience more extreme heat and cold events. The local impacts we as Minnesotans are feeling for events that are happening across the country. I'm thinking about the natural gas surcharge that'll be on our energy bills for the next 18 months because of the failure of the energy grid and the natural gas cost surges that happened because of cold events in Texas. And even on a local level, the impact of the less predictable winter weather on event planning. It's harder to plan winter events when you don't know how long we'll have ice on the lake, if that ice is going to be thick enough to handle, ice fishing tournaments or barely open events or polar plunges. So, again, we were drinking from a water hose. This is just a small piece of what we learned. But what we saw Germany doing, that we saw them working on kind of across 3 different levels, both at the regulatory and policy level. And these stretched across government levels. Some of them were local actions, some of them were regional or state, some of them were federal, and I believe some of them were even EU, so on the transnational level. But carbon reduction mandates, climate action plans. Sam borrowed a copy from Ludenscheid, but they put this together, and as soon as one of us learns German, we'll be able to translate it for you. But I think it's even just looking at the breadth and scope of this document that represents a lot of work, and it was done through community engagement. They have stronger building efficiency regulations and mandate solar on every new building, environmental offset rules in their planning processes, meaning that whatever development, the environmental impacts of a development have to be offset with investments elsewhere. They also work very heavily in community engagement and outreach, and I won't read through all of this, but they work really hard at engaging their citizenry and their businesses and recognizing that this is a change that everybody needs to work on. It's not just done at the government level, but we all have a responsibility, or they all have a responsibility in acting to make changes. Also in investment, they're investing in energy efficiency in their municipal buildings, in public transit, and walkability and bikeability improvements so people are less reliant just on individual car trips. They incentivize greenhouse gas reducing actions and investments. And they have a really, Munster has an innovative program that allows people to see the impact of their investment, where people are able to invest in a co-op base, or not a co-op, but they're able to invest in a project that installs solar on municipal buildings. And they earn, it's not a huge rate of return. Nobody's going to become a billionaire off of it, but they earn a risk-free rate of return, and it allows them to feel ownership in that change.
This is one example from Ludenscheid. It's a state-of-the-art production company, Evoline. They built their new facility with energy-efficient construction practices and with systems that capture the heat generated from manufacturing machines and the computer servers to warm the building. Consequently, the building has virtually zero need to draw from external energy sources. The founder of the company had the vision to spend more money up front on the self-sufficient design in order to ensure reduced operation costs over the life of the facility. This is an example of a public education and outreach. This postcard's barcodes shows temperature deviation from average for the city of Ludenscheid between 1881 and 2018. The gray shading shows the increase in CO2 concentrations during this time. This graphic can be replicated to reflect local data. So a carbon sink is something that absorbs carbon, such as a wetland or trees. If we measure the city's carbon sink and then measure our total citywide carbon footprint, we could determine where we stand. Having a starting point is an important place to be to know when you're trying to measure progress towards a goal. Cities such as Grand Marais, Red Wing, St. Louis Park, and other metro cities have all adopted greenhouse gas reduction goals. Planned unit development is a type of city land use approval where an exchange happens between the city and the developer. We flex some of our regulations in exchange for enhanced design in the project. The city could negotiate so that all design enhancements are sustainable initiatives. The City of St. Louis Park has green building policy that applies to all PUDs and whenever a project receives financial assistance from the city. During the winter months, the city of Warren took thermal images of the city to determine which buildings suffer from the greatest energy losses. This data helped them to determine where the greatest rate of return could be realized when applying loan and grant programs for energy efficiency improvements. The city of Maplewood has a program where neighborhoods compete against each other to reduce energy usage. 19 cities work with the Center for Energy and Environment to buy down the cost of a home energy squad visit for their businesses and residences. The city of Duluth is investing in building energy efficiency upgrades, and I should mention that we are doing the same for the city sports center. The city of Hopkins has installed electric vehicle charging stations for public use in their downtown, and many cities such as Maplewood have at least one staff member dedicated to sustainability efforts. These are just a few of the examples of what other communities are doing.
And what's our role? It's not to start cultivating mushrooms, as the slide might suggest, but this is actually a metaphor that the mayor of Munster put forth in one of his speeches to us. And he was talking about how residents will come up, particularly when they first started these initiatives, and say, what does it matter that we're doing this? We're just one small city. We're a city of 300,000 people. There's a whole world out there. How can we really make a change? And he told what he would tell residents is that it was like a mushroom. One might pop up in a field, and then another mushroom pops up in a field. And as more cities become mushrooms adopting actions to address climate change, it becomes a field of mushrooms. And that's when you start to see the change. And so when Sam and I sat back down and kind of processed everything we learned, what we came to is that there's really two spheres of impact that the city can have. And that is internally, where we address our own, institutionally as an organization, we address our climate impact and how we can mitigate that. And then externally, as a governing agency, how we can work with our community and surrounding communities and higher levels of government. And so externally, that can come through regulation, such as the PUD, the Green PUD initiatives, through educating residents about their impact and how they can mitigate their impact, residents and businesses, through incentivizing energy efficiency upgrades and other activities that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and by partnering across sectors and with our business community and residents and nonprofit organizations and with other government bodies to impact change.
In early 2020, the City Council approved a Level 1 action plan with broad objectives for sustainability. As a reminder, a hard copy of that plan was placed at your dais this evening. The Climate Smart Municipality Steering Committee, which is comprised of representatives from White Bear Lake businesses, education, and nonprofit sectors, was put on hold in 2020 due to COVID. It will soon be reconvening to continue drafting a more detailed climate action plan. We have conducted an energy audit of all the municipal buildings and have entered into a contract to execute the improvements. We have also begun to purchase hybrid vehicles in various departments such as building, police, and fire. The city is tracking the energy use in public buildings, and we have been participating in Arbor Day for over 30 years. In conjunction with Ramsey County, a food scrap dumpster was installed at the Public Works facility. Our many outreach efforts include the Solar Power Hour, the newsletter sustainability features, and the Environmental Resource Expo during the last week of Market Fest. Finally, we are currently working on completing Green Steps Level 5.
And so looking forward, there's some more immediate actions we think the city could consider adopting in order to address climate change. The first would be to adopt a climate policy lens, which really means that we're evaluating all the city's activities, the programs, projects, et cetera, from the perspective of their impact on climate change and doing what we can to mitigate those impacts and lessen them. We can continue working with the businesses through the Climate Smart Municipality Steering Committee, but also forging new relationships in the business community to help bring ideas and ways and financing information about financing these types of projects so that businesses can start reducing their impact if they haven't already started. Another idea is, and we can also use our own energy reduction efforts and projects to be examples to show best practices to our local community. Another idea that is happening in Duluth to a certain extent, although I couldn't explain the exact details right now, but also Ludenscheid is doing, is to use the cost savings from their energy efficiency projects to reinvest in a fund that's then used to invest in additional energy efficiency projects, but also to provide incentives to local residents in the business community to invest in their own. At the planning department level, we can look at reviewing our land use and building codes to find opportunities to improve sustainability measures in local development projects in the built environment. In the near term, again, we plan to publicize and promote the city's facility energy audit results in the next newsletter so that people can see us as an example. We'll be reconvening the Climate Smart Municipalities Steering Committee to complete the Climate Action Plan, and then we will be bringing that to Council for your review and hopefully adoption. Circling back, in conclusion, we're ending up back at where we started, the cost of inaction. On the trip, this hit me particularly hard as a parent. While I know the impacts of climate change will affect my way of life, I fear that it will make it impossible for my own child to enjoy the same quality of life I have. It is a reminder of an oft-used quote: "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, but rather we are borrowing it from our children." Truly, we are grateful to have had the opportunity to participate in the program. We learned a lot. I hope that shows through this presentation. And we learned about how we can make change in our own individual roles in the organization. There's so much more we could have reported back on, but I don't think you want to hear just us talking tonight. So we've tried to be concise and distill it down to a few points. But we're here in part to remind council that the city has members of staff that are enthusiastic to continue and expand upon the work the city is already doing. And we have the technical expertise and capacity to execute additional measures to meet the goals that the council sets forth in this matter. In addition to ourselves, council members Bean and Edberg also participated in the program, and they may have other insights that they would like to share with you tonight.
Thank you. Members, anything you'd like to add? Councilmember Bean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The presentation was extremely good. I thank you very much for the concise and informative presentation. One of the things I remember from the very first, so I've had the opportunity to go to Germany twice. The first time, one of the things I remember most is Senator David Senjum and his saying, "You can lead, you can follow, or you get out of the way. If you follow, you lose." And we don't want to lose. We have to lead in order so that we can stay ahead. We don't want to be the ones that are losing in this race. And leading, it doesn't mean that we're going to be spending a ton of city's money, but we need to put some of the city's focus on this. Some of the ideas that you brought forward as far as what the city could do. Not a whole lot of. There might be time involved, but not a whole lot of cost. A lot of cost savings. I mean, I've got friends that, believe it or not, think that, well, if the city requires you to put a charging station in your house, it's going to cost $10,000. I put a charging station in my house. It would have been half the cost if I would have done it when I built the house. It was $1,000. It would have cost $500 to do it when I built it. Let's, do that. A requirement like that doesn't cost $10,000. It saves hundreds, and it makes it easier. And then there's also the investment return. The sooner you start this, the sooner you start seeing the return on the investment. That's like the mushrooms, and that's like your family or investment advisors telling you the sooner you invest, the sooner your returns become self-replicating, and you have to put less into it because what you've already invested is producing those returns. We want to produce those returns. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Edberg.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we live in a society that is not entirely aligned, but I think the leading sources of information and knowledge are aligned, that we face massive changes in our climate. And these are showing up in places around that we see in our everyday lives. Simple things. When I was growing up, we never saw possum as roadkill. Why do we see them now? They're migrating north because our climate has changed, and they're responding to a more amenable climate for their use. When I started growing commercial blueberries 45 years ago, I couldn't grow some of the varieties that I grow today. And it's because our climate has changed. This isn't just weather, this is climate. And there's all kinds of our everyday examples that I think we can all look at. I appreciated the mention about our city infrastructure and the capacity to handle 2-inch rains. That being a 1 in 100 year event, and now we're seeing them annually, multiple times. It's like it's all around us. The planet is screaming to us if we but care to take a look and take note. Now, that doesn't mean that all things are doable in the short term or in the medium term. I think it means sober thought and consideration is required. And so let's pick the places where we have opportunities, where we have energy, where we have local advantages that allow us to advance things that make sense for us. So in this council chambers, last month, we had representatives of a local company who has a major division located in our city limits, and they do this professionally. And they have been engaged with us and with a whole bunch of other folks to say what makes sense for you in a whole bunch of individual situations. Those folks get paid in the real world because they know some things about how to make this transition. For those who might be thinking that government-y types are driving this conversation, I particularly appreciated the conversation about how real-world companies are investing billions of dollars because they see the handwriting on the wall. One of the things that was very clear, Germany is a car nation, whether it's BMW or Volvo, anyway, you got it, Mercedes. Every major German manufacturer is coming out with lines and planning to convert their lines to electric vehicles. We are seeing the same thing in the United States. They are responding to markets, they are responding to people who are paying cash, and they're making changes. So for those of us who look to the market for validation, I guess we could subscribe to Elon Musk's Twitter and find out what's the market value of Tesla these days. Anyway, the point is we have lots of stuff going on. We need sober thought. Let's pick our places and let's be intentional and not hide our head in the sands. I valued the opportunity to learn from colleagues in Germany, and I valued as much the connections that we have made here in our own community and in our own state for how Minnesota might play a role in that conversation.
Thank you. No, I have to say, I hope this project will continue because I do believe that it's very important for our future, for the city, for the people in the city. So I hope it will continue. And the task force is a good group of people that have come together to work on potential solutions and things we can do. So Ms. Heinecker and I went on the last trip to Germany, and I believe they're coming in February. So you will have visitors from Germany in February. So thank you both for presenting this tonight. It was very informing. Moving on to item 5. Hearing in consideration of a proposed right-of-way vacation. Ms. Kane.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The current county records reflect a recording error with regards to Fifth Avenue right-of-way and vacation. 2 resolutions were presented to the City Council back in 1977. The first request was to vacate Fifth Avenue right-of-way between the south side of Highway 96 to the north side of Clarence Street. We'll call that Vacation A, highlighted in blue on the aerial map behind me. The second resolution was to vacate Fifth Avenue right-of-way between the north side of Clarence, south to the north side of Whitaker Street. We'll call that Vacation B, highlighted in red on the exhibit behind me. The second vacation request was never approved by the City Council. Only Vacation A was adopted. However, Vacation B resolution was accidentally filed with the county that same month. The error was realized fairly quickly, and an affidavit by the city attorney at that time was soon recorded to nullify and revoke the misfiled resolution. And then at that time, Vacation A, shown here in blue, was recorded with Ramsey County. And this correction has been evident in the city's maps for many years. I'll just walk you through some of those from left to right here. In 2001, you can see that the Fifth Avenue right-of-way was still shown from the north edge of Clarence Street to the south. In 2003, again, it's shown. The right-of-way is shown as white and then I don't know if that green public use or designation of the wetland creeped into it, but you can still see the right-of-way in 2003, as well as on the 2011 map, and again on a utility plan from the engineering department as recently as 2014. Somehow staff believes somewhere in between 2014 and 2017, Vacation B was somehow recreated by Ramsey County and started to reflect on the maps, but still without City Council approval of that vacation. And it's our position that the county data has remained incorrect since that time. Tonight we are conducting a public hearing, which has been published in the paper and notice sent to all property owners within the Ramaley Plat between 5th and 4th Avenues, south of 96 to Whitaker. And so staff is requesting that the City Council conduct the public hearing this evening, take testimony from those notified residents, and then continue the case until the December 14th meeting to allow additional time for the city attorney to conduct legal research into the matter. As noted, it is a complicated history to understand all the documentation and how this error was recreated, and we would like to be able to the best of our ability, provide that information to the council and to the residents of this neighborhood as to this vacation. So that really summarizes my introductory comments, and be happy to answer any questions the council might have before the public hearing or afterwards.
Thank you. Council, any questions at this time for Ms. King? If not, I will open it up for the public hearing. I would like to remind everybody that we are here just to talk about the vacation. That's it, nothing else. So please try to address your comments to that piece. I see I have about 4 people that have signed up to speak. If you want to, I can either call you out by name, or if you want to come up and just give me your name, whatever works. So at this time, the public hearing is open. Sure.
Last time,
I need your name and address for the record, please.
I live at 1801 Clarence Street. I am, last time I was here was the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago, and I was last to go, and they made it a point to say, don't repeat yourself or repeat the people before you. So everything I wanted to say was taken away, so
that's why you're first.
So I actually am here to offer a proposal solution to the issue at hand. Obviously, legality speaking, the jurisdiction reaches far beyond this bench here, right? Fair to say. So there's a couple things that I wish to do. I'm going to establish a timeline. I'm going to clear up some misinformation, and then perhaps offer the solution, and then some other notes I might have. So I want to make note of June 14th because 2021 and June 14th, 1977, those are 2 dates that play a role in this situation. In June 14th, the request to vacate A and B, as described by the city previously, was heard and decided upon. A was passed, and rightly so. B, it says here that the abutting property owners had not signed the petition as required by ordinance. Well, I went ahead and got all of the signatures of the abutting property holders, including others in the neighborhood, after explaining the situation. So I have that. Now, here's my thing. There's meetings every 2 weeks, correct? The accident, I'm going to call it the Great Whoopsie of 1977, when B was accidentally submitted, was the day before the next meeting would have occurred, which means if this had been submitted at that meeting, what would the result have been? So sit on that. Moving on. That opportunity was never presented because there was a mistake made. And as far as I'm concerned, everything else that happened after that is irrelevant, because according to the initial intent, it was to A public hearing has been discussed. It appears to be in the public interest to vacate. And why would that be? Can we put that photo back up of the land plot of the whole? Nope. Those are just pictures. Okay, right here. When you look at this, can I go over here? When you look at this, what do you see in all of this right here? And then this, what do you see? I see a buffer, which is exactly what they were just talking about in the meeting, in the segment before. So we have natural habitat occurring, and they want to take it away. Okay, we'll leave that at that. So in 1977, they found it was in the public's interest to vacate it. But there was an accident that